Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. I'm your host, Ross Benjamin of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. Today, I'm not only joined by one, two, but three guests as we welcome Mr. Paul Bovi to the set. And also, Paul is one of the great handicappers over at the Winner's Circle. Winnercircle.net, which is our handicapping site. And again, folks, Winner's Circle is our sponsor of today's show. And every day, as a matter of fact. But without further ado, let me say hello first, Mr. Jesse Schule, who's once again in his backyard in Thailand. You can see the beautiful picturesque background. How are you, Jesse?
Doing great, Ross. I was looking forward to this show regardless, but after the Utes got a nice win over Florida last night, I am feeling good about college football, let me tell you.
Yeah, man. It was my premium pick last night. And, I want to say we had over 11,000 views on our Thursday night video preview show where we gave out three picks, and we went 3-0. And I know a lot of you Florida fans out there that chimed in and are disheartened today. But, that's what we do for a living. And you never know. Next week, we might like Florida. Who knows? But anyway, Paul, it's been a long time, Mr. Paul Bovi, since me and you did something together. And I'm really, really looking forward to your expertise on this show. It's an added asset that we're all lucky to have. And are you in Mexico right now?
I am. I don't have quite the view that Jesse has, but I have a pretty good one myself. It's just that I'm facing in the other direction. But we had a crocodile scare last night. 8 of them escaped in the marina, and I usually swim. So I skipped it this morning, but I didn't have Utah last night, by the way, but I did have UCF, and they just poured it on over a Kent team that came in absolutely depleted. No starters on offense, so that one figured, and the line showed as the number went from 30 to 37 at its peak, settled in at 35.5, and an easy win for the Knights.
There you go. And Sean mentioned on an earlier show last week the UCF was the best team in the state of Florida, and boy, oh boy, they did nothing to convince otherwise last night, Sean.
Well, I had the under, so punching in the touchdown with 54 seconds.
Oh
my goodness! Come on, that's the way that's it. I got great. That's like bookends for me. I lose my Ohio quarterback to start my first game, and then I get a crazy. Well, not crazy. I mean, they dominated that team, but just welcome to sports betting, everybody. That's the first. That's week 0, week 1. You're gonna get kind of bad breaks. They happen. We got to roll with the punches. What am I going to do?
There wasn't that many overs on last night's card, so really unlucky that you got one of the few that did go over.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if you count the FCS versus FBS games as well, we looked at 11 games on the board, and 8 of them went under the total. This is our first live show, folks. So what's great about that is we're not doing anything different, but you have the option to, because you could chime in with some questions for us, anything that's on your mind regarding week 1 in college football, maybe an early look we'll talk about in the NFL for week 1 as well. Anything that comes up and you would normally comment on our archives, you're going to get instantaneous answers, as long as it's a pertinent and intelligent question, folks. What kind of Brill cream or hair gel does Jesse wear on a daily basis?
Brill cream.
Yeah. What kind of
what is that? A little dab of Brill cream. What was that?
A little dab of do you, Paul?
I mean, what is that? You're aging yourself with that one. What is I don't even know what Brill cream is. What is that?
Hide from it. Not too many guys look this good at 66 either. So eat your heart out, people. Anyway, all right, so let's take a look at let's start with some college football line moves, and there's plenty of them to discuss. But the one thing, again, we're going to stay on this theme with these totals, and to start anyway, we've seen a lot of totals so far. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. There's a very small sample size, but the games that have been played so far, we're seeing a lot of unders. I mean, 12-6 to the under right now if you count the FCS versus FBS games, and if you're just counting the FBS versus FBS, then we're talking 7-4 to the under. And one thing I'm noticing, guys, is I look at the opening numbers, the totals on Saturday's card, for example, even Friday's card. All four of Friday's games, today's games, the total is currently lower than the opening number.
Yep.
And then when I looked at Saturday's card, I found 19 games out of the 32 that are lower than the opening number. 2 of them stayed the same, and only 11 out of the 32 games have a higher current total than the opening total. So we're seeing a trend here. Now, is this an adjustment by the odds makers, or is this money induced? Is a good question, and one I'm going to ask all of your opinions on. So let's start with you, Paul.
Well, first of all, when you see a total move, it doesn't take that much, and it could be one group. So I don't always pay attention to it. If a number comes down from, let's say, 48 to 46, it just doesn't take a lot of money to do it. And there are groups out there that try to seize the best numbers. So I don't really hesitate to go against these moves, and I just think that it's a situation where somebody spotted value on these numbers and they just went to the low side. But I don't really use that as a benchmark to whether games are going to go high or low. I just look for value in what I perceive to be the real number as a guide to whether I'm going to go to the over or the under.
Would you agree that this trend of how many games lower than the opening total, meaning lower numbers than the opening total, is a little bit unusual at the rate it is right now for week one? I mean, usually the general public are over bettors by habit, but the sharp bettors obviously will move these games. It's always, to me, when I see an under move, 48 going to 46, 51 going to 48, I always think, okay, is this a sharp money move, or is this a public move, or what am I missing? Did somebody get ruled out? What reason did this occur? If you're looking at a total and you're looking at a specific total that you like, is what I'm referring to. I'm not talking about going and deciphering through every total. Jesse, what's your thoughts?
Well, I know it's a small sample size, Ross, and I did comment under the last video that we did on Thursday when we were talking about these rules and what effect they will have. But I can't say that I'm convinced, but I feel pretty strongly that the new rules are affecting the numbers. I'm not about to go in bet on these numbers that have already been bet down. That goes against my principles, but not all the numbers have been bet down. And there is a few totals that have been bet up, and games where the people are still betting the overs despite the under trend, which seems quite, as you mentioned, it seems quite clear that there is a buzz now that people are expecting games to be lower scoring, and the lines are moving, which indicates that. So the games where people are betting into the over, they're assuming that these offenses are going to be a certain way, tempo, up speed, very fast play with good quarterback play and a lot of skill position, wide receivers and such. But there's a lot of player turnover. There's new quarterbacks. There's new offensive coordinators. Generally in week one, I think if you expect everything to go smoothly and perfect on offense, a lot of times you're sadly disappointed. I did say that, ideally you'd like to sit and watch week one and then judge how these new rules are going to affect the totals. But as I said, by the time you sit and wait, you've missed the opportunity. I would have loved to have gotten in, and I really feel like I should have, and I missed the boat not getting in on under in the Nebraska game and the Utah game last night before they were bet down 4 or 5 points, and a handful of other games on Saturday's card that I probably should have been on that I wasn't on. So I think this is going to be a trend, and I think we will see lower scores. Sorry for going on, but I will mention that I have a source that says teams on average are running 4 to 5 fewer plays per game. And I was watching ESPN this morning, and Greg McElroy sort of shrugged his shoulders and said, eight plays, like it was no big deal, but 8 plays. I mean, how much clock gets burnt up on a drive that goes 8 plays? It could be 5, 6, 7 minutes, depending on, how things work out. So, I think it's very significant, and I think it's something that we're going to pay attention to all year.
Yeah, bringing you up to speed, Paul, we've been talking about the rule changes where the clock doesn't stop on first downs anymore, and it only stops inside of 2 minutes of the first half in the final 2 minutes of the game. So that's what's prompted this whole conversation in terms of what are we looking at here when we see these numbers come down. Is this, you're suggesting that money has been bet by groups or sharps to bring these totals down. I'm not so sure that's the whole reason why, but it's certainly something that has to be accounted for. Sean, one of the viewers commented, you need a tie.
I saw that. I laughed when I saw that from my guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you saw how he dressed before, we put this, you must wear a collar thing. By the way, Paul, in the future.
Yeah,
it's okay. I didn't tell you. All right, so we all know now. Everybody should wear a collar.
Yeah, I wore a T-shirt. I had a knot-up neckline, I guess. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Yeah. Anyway, Sean, your take on this general discussion here.
Well, I mean, Paul and Jess, I touched on a lot already, and you just mentioned like the groups moving in. I tend to agree with Paul there because the early number to move is maybe not a group or an individual. Whoever's betting early, that is not people coming into our chat, or average bettors are not betting opening numbers on a Sunday at 11 a.m. So the line's coming down because someone max bets it. The books obviously respects that guy's number. It's going to come down. Now, for me, when I see kind of early, and I'm an early bettor like that, does it affect me? Only if I kind of was into that game to start, So I kind of not give credence to that right away, especially now with the clock. Like I don't know. Like Jess said, he sat out week 0. I want to sit and watch kind of games, and I don't sit out. I'm going to jump in. But you've seen, and you mentioned the stats here or the numbers for the total football games with these unders. It's definitely something to look at going forward. And are they still adjusting down? Like for next week, we'll see next week's lines. Are they going to be down even a little lower? Like, are there going to be 3.4-point line moves in a span of a week next week? Because then it's something major. Like now it's kind of be like, is it an overreaction from what we saw in a handful of games last Saturday or whenever that was last weekend to Thursday, Friday, Saturday games this week? You got to go slow. That's my look at it. It's I don't know. It's definitely not a fluid situation. Got to keep an eye on it, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's where I'm going with this is what's generating these moves. Is it public perception by the odds makers after they saw the betting patterns because of the rule changes? Is it all sharp money? Is it groups trying to move a line or move a total down 2 or 3 points so they can come back the other way later on in the week? There's a lot of different layers to be looking at when it comes to this particular topic matter. Graham Mertz is trash. He was terrible at Wisconsin. Utah was easy. And once I seen he was Florida's quarterback, that comes from Melvin. So thank you, Melvin, for commenting. And that's the one question I kept asking all the Gators fans that were chiming in. And we appreciate all your comments. Gators fans or not. But, the question I kept asking you guys is you're talking like you're a legitimate threat in the SEC and you're back to national relevance. And my point is Graham Mertz, did you watch him play quarterback at Wisconsin? What makes you think that he's your ticket to success? And obviously we saw it last night. Nothing but a conservative drop back, don't take a lot of chances down the field type of quarterback. And without a potent running game like he had at Wisconsin, I don't know how effective this kid is going to be. Anyway, Paul, here's a question I got to ask you, because obviously you're not hesitant to lay a big number like you did last night with UCF early on. Is that something, I mean, even when we get into the middle of the season and in conference play, is there a point where you say too much, this is too much, I'm not willing to lay this number, even though I might have a lean toward this team?
I think you have to assess the coaches. Okay, so last night you had a coach who last year, 56-10 over South Carolina State, never pulled his starting quarterback till very late. The backup only had one attempt. So you have to figure UCF is going to have the same mindset there. The coach will have the same mindset. And that's exactly what happened because they didn't take their foot off the gas. Henceforth, unfortunately, Sean lost his over or his under, and as did a lot of people, as did a lot of sharps, because it was 57 and ultimately it went to 53.5. And I think that was sharp money. I want to make a comment about what we discussed before. I do think it's the sharps moving those numbers early. I will tell you that I have moved numbers on totals by 2 points. It doesn't take a lot. You hit it at a few spots, and then other spots pivot off of that. I think the public tends to bet these totals later in the week. Friday, Saturday, mostly Saturday morning, they open up the paper and they say, this looks good, this doesn't look good. But I will lay big numbers, by the way, but you have to look at the coach. Take Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is not a guy that goes out and covers spreads. He had some huge numbers in week 1 and week 2 last year, opened up monstrous leads at the half, and then parked the bus, and they ended up not covering, one game being against Hawaii, where they were favored by, I think, 49, had a 49 or 46 point lead at halftime, and end up winning by a shade less than the number. So you have to assess the coaches, but in certain instances, I will lay the lumber.
Yeah, I recollect vividly. Bill Snyder was one of those guys at Kansas State when he was there. If he could, he would whack a team as hard as he can, given the opportunity. And back then, it was about style points, and we didn't have the system in place now that we have. It was about opening up the voters' eyes in the AP and the UPI and whatever other poll there was, because there was no college football playoff back then. It was the top 2 ranked teams in the eyes of the voters that would get to the college football national championship game. Anyway, Sean, in terms of this upcoming week, is there anything in college football, a line move in particular? Doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have a pick on this game or a bet on this game for us to discuss it. So is there a line move that you find a little bit suspicious and possibly enough so that it kept you off the game or put you on a game, for example?
I guess the Hawaii total overreaction. I think that's the game we look at. It opened at 9 and 10. It went down to a 3.
Yeah.
What? That is a crazy one.
Well, 9 was before they played their opener, right?
Exactly. So, but even before that, it had dropped down to like a 7 before they even played Vandy, and then it was to a 3. Yeah. Like that's I don't even know what to say to that game. Like that is opening number, sure. Miami, Hawaii at home, good spot. But now it's like, all right, everybody saw you come back, but you're on a short week, crazy travel, delayed. I don't want to take Hawaii out of 3 here. I'd rather take a Stanford, and I think Stanford's going to be bad. But that's a game. It's much like the Utah game last night, from an 8.5, 9 down to a 4, back to a 5. That's a crazy move. I mean, that's number one looking out for me there. And the Purdue game, I kind of like Fresno. Now it's down to 4. I mean, I still kind of lean that direction there. I like it, but Purdue revamping everything, new coach. I like what's his name over there, Jeff Tedford as a coach. He's always competitive. I know the quarterback's gone, but that's a smaller little line move. But I'm still on that game. But I think the Hawaii game is the giant move. I think, unless there's another one. I think that sticks out to me. Is there another big move? Maybe Sam Houston State 22 down to a 19.
Yeah.
I got that at 23.5 on the opener. It's 19.
23.5, and it's now 20. So, Interesting points there. Yeah, that Hawaii game is the one that really stands out. And again, I think that game one result of them giving Vanderbilt a much tougher time than a lot anticipated had something to do with that line move. And then, of course,
What?
I mean, you
Hold
get
on, Ross. I got real fast on that Vandy game. So there's like a rain delay, and the visiting team is in a tent, in a party tent, in a parking lot. Like, how is that? You don't think that's going to bother teams when it's 110 degrees in that time? Maybe they have air conditioner in there, but I mean, how? That's a little bit of a home field advantage. You're in a tent in a parking lot.
Yeah.
You have the visiting team. What is during a lightning storm? Right, guys, go stay in your tent.
Yeah, but can we agree that that might have been a horrible number to make Stanford a 10-point favorite? They returned 15 starts on their offensive line. They've just been absolutely gashed. And Hawaii, they were outscored 168-37 in the first 3 games of last year, and then went on a covering tear. Every game was competitive except for the one against Fresno State. So I just think they hung a terrible number. And maybe it's fair value right now, but you got to give Hawaii some credit.
Yeah.
Shager, by the way, had a great game, 27-35 for 350, which bested his top yardage number last year by a factor of 90. So Hawaii's definitely turned the corner, and I think they're getting points at home is still a bargain.
I got a friend I call Mr. Chalk, and he loved Vandy. I'm like, how can you love Vandy? He's like, oh, they were good last year, a breakthrough. I'm like, they won 5 games. Like this is not a good. I mean, Hawaii's not a good program, but to be laying 17 might as well be 20 in my book. Like you got to put up a bunch of.
And the year before, Vanderbilt crushed them on the road too. There was a little bit of a revenge factor there, but let's not forget, right, Jesse, that that was a 21-point game in the fourth quarter, and Hawaii did come back and score 2 late touchdowns. However, I mean, I know they gave up 35 in that game, Hawaii, but I was impressed with their defense. Remember, one of those touchdowns for Vandy was a kick return, but they had several tackles for losses, and they were very competitive throughout. But anyway, your thoughts on any line moves that jump out at you, Jesse, that are worth discussing, or you want to elaborate more on the conversation we're having in the Hawaii game?
I think I'm going to address a question from Keith Landry, who asked about the Central Michigan State game. I believe that is. Is that correct? Central Michigan.
That
Michigan
is
State.
correct. That goes tonight.
Total opens right around 50, 51. It's been bet down the best you can get now if you're looking at the under, which is the way I would look. Picking up on our previous conversation, I really feel strongly that the new rules are resulting. If you try to figure out a mathematical formula for what the effect of the new rules is, I would say teams that run the ball as often as they throw it and play a pro style offense, you're looking at 4 or 5 points fewer on average per game. That's the way I envision this developing, and we've seen these kind of correct. That's basically what the bookmakers are telling us. That's the way they've adjusted to it. So not much value there with the total going down to 45. I still could see. I might look at a first half under if you could get. Sometimes they offer a higher number for higher than half of the total for the first half. If you could get a good line for a first half under, I might look at that. And we did discuss that after week 0, that the handful of games that went over all seemed to have a lot of scoring in the fourth quarter. And we saw a lot of low scoring first halves, particularly the Notre Dame game was not a low scoring first half. I was just surprised at the ease that Notre Dame was cruising down the field. And it seemed like the clock just was burning up as they were doing it, preventing them from really running up the score. Keith also mentioned the Colorado State, Washington State game moved from plus 16 to plus 11. So a lot of sharp money on Colorado State. I think that we discussed it on this channel with the quarterback they had completing 72% of his passes. I think his name's Clay Millen, but they couldn't keep him upright last year. And, it doesn't matter how good you are if your offensive line can't keep you upright. That was evidenced by their 3-9 season last year. I'd love to take Colorado State plus 16, plus 14.5 even. The value is gone, in my opinion. So that's a pass. But yeah, I guess I'll yield to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, and Marv chimes in. It says wrong line move yesterday. The Utes covered. Well, you got to, again, folks. There's what I just alluded to early in the show. When you see a line like that opened at 9.5, went down to as low as 3.5, went back up to 6. All of that was predicated on the status of starting quarterback Cam Rising of Utah. So that wasn't so much a money move, a sharp move, as much as an adjustment for availability, of the starting quarterback. I took Jersey's advice and bet first half unders on Utah, Minnesota, North Carolina State, and Cha-Ching. I have no idea what you're referring to, Al, but if you could be a little more clear. Kirby Smart should have let backup quarterback get more time last year because everybody's seeing Georgia lost their quarterback and won't even win the East. Paul, is that an overreaction? I mean,
I would say so. I think it's an overreaction. I look. It's not about the quarterback with these programs. A lot of times they're just stacked. I mean, there's guys waiting in the wings, and I have no doubt that they're going to be very competitive and have a shot to win it all. So I think it's an overreaction.
There you go. So I agree with you, Paul. Al chimes in. It says only watching to see Sean's beautiful head of hair. Hey, yeah, well, we got to wear sunglasses going forward because that shine off that baldness is.
I shaved it yesterday.
Yeah.
The other night. What was that? Wednesday night.
Here's a question for you, Paul, because I know you're good at this. TCU's team total of 41.5. One of the questions that came in from Mar. Your opinion, one way or the other?
I don't have an opinion on that game. I don't have anything strong. I've deferred to a few other contests on the slate, and I just think that game it was a pass. I looked at it several times, and that's how I go down the docket. And 85% of the games are going to be a pass, and I have 2 games that I'm just all in on, and one of them is on the site, and I labeled it a 10-dime game because I have 10 dimes and I posted the ticket. So I took a pass on that TCU game. It's a very public game. A lot of people have opinions, but I don't.
Yeah. So in terms of that total of 41.5, I would tend to lean going over that total because I think Colorado's going to be a mess to start the season. I really do. Too much turnover, a lot of chaos, new coaching staff. And TCU, yes, they lost some prime players on the offensive side of the ball, namely their leading rusher, their starting quarterback, Max Dugan. But guys, either Sean or Jesse, if you want to chime in on the over 41.5 in terms of TCU's team total.
I would lean under. I wouldn't go to the window with that. I would look at the total for the game. I did mention that this is one of those games where you've seen that move where a lot of these totals have been bet down. This one's gone the other way. It's been bet up. Colorado has that new offensive coordinator, the flash fast from Kent State, and they're going to try and go fast and play up tempo. It remains to be seen if they're going to be successful doing that, though. 3 and out and punting it to TCU, who's got a bigger, badder offensive line and some quality running backs. I think TCU ran for 275 yards and 4 touchdowns against Colorado in Colorado last year. They do have a new quarterback. They do have a new offensive coordinator. Do they want to go balls to the wall and throw it around the yard against a Deion Sanders coach secondary? I'm not 100% certain that's the best plan of attack in week 1, when you probably could just kick back, lean on your offensive line, run the ball down the field, chew up the clock, win by a score of 38-10 or something along those lines. So there's so many uncertainties about this game, which is, I think, why Paul is looking at a pass with all the player turnover, and we have no idea what to expect from Colorado in particular, and big changes at TCU as well. So, bet at your own risk, but that's the way I see it with this game.
And let me clarify, because I am not going to bet that game. I'm just giving you an opinion. If you put a gun to my head kind of thing, I would go over 41.5. And even more so now that Jesse mentions that Colorado's going to try to go play really, really fast, which means unless they sustain drives, TCU is going to get plenty of offensive possessions in that game. And I don't see them being stopped by Colorado. Star Child asked, I think Colorado can cover. I'm not using that game. If you watch the free pick segment the other day, I did use TCU as my free pick. I'm going to stick with that for now, but it's not going to be one that's going to be in my premium selection. One other question, and Sean, this is for you. Toledo's supposed to be pretty good this year, correct?
Yeah. The problem is that they're a team that is a covering enigma. Like, they're favored by 14, they lose outright. Then it's they lose games they should be winning in blowouts every year. They're supposed to win the MAC, and I like Toledo. I do. Are you talking about them, Cleo, as into this weekend in non-conference play, or are you talking overall for the season? Yeah, they're going to be good. Do I like them? This week, I'm trying to pull up who they got against Illinois.
Yeah.
Illinois' got a new coordinator there. I know Bolima's big, people like him. I've seen MAC teams just get crushed in Big Ten play. You think they want to go and play Big Brother kind of tough, but they don't seem to show up. But that being said, 9 points. I would lean Rockets. Don't have this on my radar. I didn't bet it, but obviously I'd lean dog. But I do like Toledo. We'll see how they do. I liked Miami, Ohio, too, the other day. That didn't work out well either. So,
yeah. Toledo is supposed to be one of the favorites in the MAC. I mentioned the other day that my recollection of them is always playing real tough against FBS competition, or Power 5 competition, I should say. I was wrong when I researched it. It was more in the era when Matt Campbell was there, who's not now at Iowa State, more so than when Jason Candle's been there, the current head coach. So again, it remains to be seen. That's a really tough call. I know Illinois just laying 9.5 at home after a season they went, I believe, 8-5. To me, that raises a red flag. I think they're begging you to take Illinois in that situation. With all being said, but again, I'm not willing to go to the ticket window with that. Any thoughts in that regard, Paul?
No, I just don't. I just don't have an opinion on that, and I'm just a pass on it.
All right, so NFL Week 1, we're going to discuss now real quickly, and just a quick. If anything jumps out at you, something that's worth mentioning. I'm not talking about a pick. I'm talking about a game that you looked at and said, wow, look at that line. Look at what it opened at. There hasn't been a heck of a lot of line movement in the NFL from the opening number, but anything that catches your eye in that regard, Jesse?
Before I answer that question, I will say we had a question from Mar. Any thoughts on Washington -14? I did answer him in the chat and say I do have thoughts, and I'll just quickly cover that. So Boise State, first in the nation in passing defense last year, and I wonder how much their solid record. I think they won double-digit games last year, finished with the best passing defense in the country. How much is that influencing this line? The fact of the matter is Boise State didn't play anybody last year. They played Mountain West teams that don't have a lot of high-powered offenses. The one great quarterback in the Mountain West, in my opinion, was Jake Haener. And when they played Fresno State in the regular season, Haener was injured. They didn't have to face him. So you play that schedule, you're going to have a nice-looking pass defense. They did lose a lot of guys in their secondary. They're not expected to be as good in that department this year. Washington stacked, big Penix energy, all the wide receiver, two 1,000-plus yard wide receivers. Washington does have a bit of offensive line issues. Not sure that Boise State will be able to take advantage. I think Washington at -14 is the value there.
Yeah, so there you go. That's your answer to the question. And Paul, any thoughts on NFL Week 1?
Well, there's been some Minimal moves, but some of the numbers I'm kind of surprised at. New Orleans only being 3 over Tennessee. I think they're giving the Titans a little more respect than they deserve here. And you could see that they really discount the preseason because Carolina was awful, and yet they're only 3.5-point dogs to Atlanta. So they're looking for them to be competitive. But there's really no huge line movements. Obviously, Buffalo has gone from 1, I believe, to 2.5, and then you have a move on the Packer game, and you wonder how successful Jordan Love is going to be. By the way, Jordan Love, I think they're giving him a little bit too much love. This is a guy that threw 17 picks at Utah State a few years ago,
Yeah.
and they're expecting him to be the heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers, who we understand was not very good last year, but it's still Aaron Rodgers. So nothing off the chart. It's week 1. There's going to be a lot of surprises, no doubt. There'll be some survivors that go down in flames. A lot of people right now on the Washington team because they're playing this Arizona squad that right now is going with Joshua Dobbs as its starting quarterback and is dealing with a lot of change. But it remains to be seen how it's going to unfold. But outside of that, really nothing that sticks out.
Yeah. So fair enough. I mean, all good observations, though.
What are the thoughts here? A Philadelphia line coming down to a 4 now.
Yeah, I saw that. It's actually down to 3.5.
Listen, I'm a Cowboy guy. I mean, and I hate Philly. I don't see how New England. How is this line coming? Is this that much Belichick love? I mean, what
Super Bowl hangover?
I don't know. That doesn't make sense. And yes,
Super Bowl that you lost. They
Super
lost, right?
Bowl losers in the first 4 weeks of the year historically are not good covering machines. But having said that, it's still about the players and the coaches. And again, this line, it's a head scratcher to me. It opened at 4.5, now down to 3.5.
And I hate sounding square like that. Like you got to take. I mean, I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I mean, this talent wise, both sides of the ball, they're really good.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking New England. Well, they just brought in Matt Corral to be a backup quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I personally don't think that Ezekiel Elliott moves the needle much, but I could see how some fans might think that he does.
yeah, and I'd have to look at Belichick and season openers. But again, I mean, looking at the betting trends with New England since he's been there in 2000 are so drastically different over the last 3 years because you don't have Brady there.
Yeah.
And you don't have the quality of team you had there. I granted, Bill Belichick's going to be a Hall of Fame coach, but at the end of the day, if he does, he can only work miracles so much with what I think is an underwhelming roster.
We were talking about, and Paul's talking about like early college moves, that totals move early, the head fakes kind of stuff. How are you betting New England a week out like that, 10 days out to move that line down? Because I think that line would only go up. I figured that line would be 6 by game time. People just pounding the Eagles.
Yeah. Yeah. And me, when I see a line that's odd like this, I tend to want to go the other way, meaning I'm looking for a reason to use New England because
now for sure I'm going to take New England.
To me. Is this a sharp move, Paul, in your estimation?
I tell you, I can't figure it out. And I would agree. Philly is the best team in the NFL. They are NFC. They're completely stacked. They bring back most of their talent. They lost a few, brought over a few. They got a great running game. They got just a barrage of backs that could carry the ball. And you wonder what's going on. But I will give credit to Belichick in one regard. This was a top 10 offensive line for 15 years straight. And then last year they fell back down to 19, and he's brought over a couple pieces to try to strengthen that. So, and that will go a long way into Mac Jones' success or failure this year. But, you got to give Belichick some credit. You got to give him credit. They're home. And Philly did take on a pretty soft schedule last year. and they had some breakdowns throughout the course during the course of the season. I think one of those was to Washington. So I can't really figure out the move. I would make Philly probably 4.5 to 5 here, and I'm probably not going to be on the game.
Yeah, it's certainly a fishy line move more than anything else. So, very good stuff. And a couple questions here. A couple comments. Derek Miller says New England gets no credit. I think it's the exact opposite. I'm sorry, Derek. I'd have to disagree with you. I think the New England Patriots get much more respect than they deserve just because of Belichick. Jesse Marr asks, I like the Falcons -3. I got it. Now it's 3.5. Any thoughts? Need a new head coach, new quarterback on the road, week 1. Thoughts? Jesse, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen enough from Ritter for me to have much faith in taking the Falcons in this spot or moving forward. I want to see more out of him, and tough team to get a handle on the Falcons. So count me out certainly for week 1.
I know the prohibitive favorite in a division is New Orleans right now, but the bottom line is I think Atlanta can make a run at New Orleans and have and make a run and stay in the race. Let's put it.
They got they have some nice young offensive talent, and I think the coach is on a hot seat, so that's why you kind of look there. How about the under though? What is that total down to now? That's kind of come that's
the
under 40.
No, it's 40. 40. Yep. So. Some low totals. I mean, 40 on the Atlanta, New Orleans game, 40.5 on San Fran and Pitt, 39 on Arizona and Washington.
Like Paul had hit on like the preseason, how you don't really give a lot of credence to that in the lines and stuff like that. I still can't for the life of me. You got these rookie quarterbacks. I mean, Carolina, you let the guy, he doesn't even throw that much, and you're going to throw. Again, Atlanta's not like the doomsday defense or something. It's not like some great juggernaut coming into play. But how do you not let these guys play at all in the preseason?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Atlanta's basically got a rookie quarterback themselves, but I can't have faith in Carolina here.
That's why you put a lot of I put a lot of emphasis on head coaches and how they operate in the preseason more than anything else when I make preseason picks. And that's exactly
probably an under in that game for me.
Yeah. All right. So look at
I think a lot of these games you really have to take a peek and let them draw the curtain, and you can play them live. I just think live wagering is a huge advantage here because I think you're going to get a sense of the ebbs and flows of the game and how these quarterbacks are going to perform just by watching them for a few minutes, see their confidence level, and if they're willing to throw the football, they're just going to take off and run. And, you got to strike, get opportunity and look for it during live wagering. And that's how you have to approach it because it is a tough take or it's a tough lay. As was pointed out, Ritter, to me, is a starting, not a bona fide starting quarterback in the NFL. I mean, this guy wasn't great at Cincinnati. And then you got another quarterback that's a rookie. So what are you going to get? You just don't know.
Yeah. He was okay at Cincinnati. I mean, but I think he looked a lot better because of the sum of the parts there. Cincinnati played great defense. He had a good running game. And, of course, I'm not saying he wasn't a good college quarterback. He was. But Paul brings up a good point. There's a big difference between having decent numbers at the college level and how it translates to the NFL. If you want to, again, I'm going to use a Buffalo reference here. If you looked at Josh Allen and his completion percentage at Wyoming and his production rate at Wyoming and look at what it is in the NFL right now, who would have predicted that? So it's an inexact science, but it's something that it goes back to live betting. What Paul just said, you can get a sense of how a quarterback's going to play in the first couple series of the game sometimes. So again, it's well taken. Unfortunately, we can't do live betting when we sell picks over at gamblersworld.net, but it's something to keep in mind, folks. If you're a person that doesn't want to take any of our advice and do it on your own, maybe that's the route to go. Hey, Paul bets plenty of money, and he's very successful. So I would give credence to what he just said there. All right. Thank you for all the comments today, folks. We really appreciate it, but we're Going pretty long here for us, 45 minutes. But we do appreciate all your comments. And don't forget, folks, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, take a second to do so. You're watching because you're interested in sports betting. And the best part about subscribing, it costs you absolutely nothing. There's no strings attached. There's no hidden agenda. You're privy to some of the best handicapping information you're going to find anywhere on the internet today when it comes to sports betting. And some great handicappers, not only us four, but we have 6 other great handicappers over at gamblersworld.net where we guarantee all our picks, any single game, multi-game picks, daily packages, I should say. If you don't profit, you don't win, we credit your account the exact amount of your purchase price, and that goes for all subscription plans of 30 days or less. Again, college football, NFL, and college football, NFL packages up right now for each and every handicapper. And do a search on the guys we have on the site, not only us 4, but the rest of them. You'll see a very, very good credence to each one of them. When you look up, do a Google search on any of them, you'll see that these are well-respected and decorated handicappers in our industry. In any event, Paul, tell the folks what you may have coming up this weekend here over at gamblersworld.net. And I know you've been on the site for a short amount of time now, and you just started during football season. But anything, is there any carryover from last year that you had a hot streak ending NFL, college football going into this year, or whatever else you want to promo?
Well, I had a pretty good year in the NFL, but I kind of put that behind me, and I look forward, and I do have a huge play on Saturday. It's the only play I have posted right now. I have a few more coming up, but I have a 10-dime play, as I mentioned earlier. I personally have 10 dimes on the game. I put the tickets in there sometimes, which I did this time, just to lend credibility to the fact that I'm not only a handicapper, I'm a bettor first. I never give out a game that I'm not on myself personally, because I don't believe that's how it should be done. I want skin in the game. You want me to have skin in the game, and I do. So I have that game up. I'll probably have 2 or 3 more. I'm not a volume handicapper. You won't see me come out with 8, 9, 10 games on a Saturday. I try to cherry pick my best, put them up there, and give you the best opportunity to win.
Fair enough. That's Paul Bovi. You can find him at gamblersworld.net. Folks, he's been around for a very long time, like us. Very successful track record of winning. And you heard it from him. And when he tells you he bets 10,000 on a game, I could tell you, if you trust me and you trust my opinion, which I hope you would, you've been watching me for 3 years now, I'm going to tell you unequivocally, when he makes a claim he bets 10,000 on a game, it is true. Okay, so he's got that same pick that he just bet $10,000 on up right now at gamblersworld.com. So keep an eye on that, folks, or jump in and make a score. You don't have to bet $10,000, obviously, but the confidence level speaks for itself when you make a wager that large and then you put it up for sale. Jesse, what do you got coming up?
Well, Ross, I happened to catch the show yesterday, and I heard a conversation between you and Kyle where you were discussing who indeed is the best totals handicapper in the business. I know Sean and I threw Kyle's name into the hat, and you were quite upset with us that we didn't mention your name. I just out of curiosity's sake, I took a look at my career record with college football totals, 184 and 125. That's 60%. That's career. That's dating back over a decade. Of course, it's not a huge sample size. I don't play as many totals as some of these totals experts, and a lot of those games would be weather affected. Getting on top of the weather reports and betting weather unders in the wintertime with college football. For those of you who aren't familiar with that tactic, it's one that I use. It's one that Kyle uses, and it can be quite effective if you're on the ball. The reason I talk about totals, got a 3-pack of totals up on the site for sale for Saturday's slate. I'm taking a pass on Friday's slate. I've been very conservative, just one college football play so far, and that was Nebraska plus 7.5. Got to the winner's circle with that play, and we're hoping to do the same on Saturday. Come check it out. You'll be glad that you did.
Jesse Schule over at gamblersworld.net. And folks, he's had some awfully good Septembers, most recently last year in college football and the NFL. So something also to keep in the back of your mind when sifting through all the plays that are for sale or picks for sale over at gamblersworld.net. Randy Poss asks, how much for that 10-dime play, Paul, at the site?
$50.
$50. Okay. Guy's putting 10 grand on the game. He's asking you for $50. You put whatever you want on it. It's up to you. Okay. But that's a reasonable price for a top play from any great handicapper at our site. Sean, tell the folks what you may have coming up and anything you want to discuss in terms of how you've been doing of late.
Yeah. Unlike Paul, who cherry picks, I run into the tree and I shake as many cherries as I can get come down on top of me. And again, I'm not a 10-dime a game better. I'm more about a 300, 500 dime as we build the bankroll. But I grind it out. I like the volume. But we come different ways. We still win. I got a couple 3-packs up for tomorrow, college football, and I'm just excited. NFL. Last year was last year, and it was a good one. But I'm ready for this year. I'm excited. I think I have a good feel coming into the NFL. So I'm excited about the NFL. That's all. What's there to say? It's NFL. We're less than a week away. It's less than a week away. It's next Thursday.
All right. So 2 different avenues on how guys go about things. If you're a person that likes just a low volume of plays and bet a lot of money, Paul's your guy. And if you like to bet volume, Mr. Sean Higgs will certainly give you that, folks. By the way, 207 NFL picks last year. The guy won 64% of his picks last year in the NFL with that type of volume. Not to say that he's going to match that again this year, but that's some pretty good stuff. You can make a lot of money that way. And again, Paul is not a volume player, and that's okay too, because that suits a lot of your needs out there for some people. So Jesse, again, great Septembers. Myself, 24-13 the last 2 Septembers in the NFL, currently on a 19-8 college football run dating back to last year. And that's good for around 70%. And Major League Baseball, somewhere in the 65% range since August 4th. So on a nice run with Major League Baseball, although I did lose last night, that happens. In any event, you can find all of my picks as well at gamblersworld.net. Don't forget about those subscription plans, folks. Save a lot of money, invest in one of us long-term, make a lot of money over the long haul, and grind it out. There's a like button right underneath the bottom of our video there. And Jesse, what should we do with that like button?
It's always recommended that you take a second out of your day to smash that like button.
Holy cow. Anyway, that's an emphatic smash. Smash that like button, folks. It's just a small token of your appreciation for the work and preparation time we put on this channel and the quality of guys that we bring on. As you can see, look at these guys: Paul Bovi, Sean Higgs, Jesse Schule, Doug Upstone, you heard from yesterday, Kyle Hunter, you heard from yesterday. It's an all-star cast, folks. And not to put a star on my forehead personally, but all of our records speak for itself. Okay. I mean, it's not bragging if you win. And we do that on a consistent basis. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, there's a WC button right underneath in the bottom right-hand corner of your video box. If you're watching on a PC, there's a black subscribe button right underneath the video box. If you're watching on your mobile device, just click that. It'll get you subscribed. It costs you absolutely nothing. I'm going to ask you to take one step further and go into your YouTube settings and hit that notification alert bell and for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our Winner's Circle Sports Betting podcasts going up on our channel. Until the next time, for Paul Bovi, Jesse Schule, Sean Higgs, Ross Benjamin, thanks to our producers, Mr. Jim Quinn and my man Seth. Until the next time, folks, which will be Monday, take care and God bless.